we can get started. So thanks everyone for joining Lawyer Up. This is our monthly event for community education with Out for Justice and Baltimore Action Legal Team, or BALTS. So Lawyer Up is every second Tuesday of the month, and we focus on different ways that impacted people can overcome systems of oppression, specifically those based on race, affecting Black people in Baltimore City. And so Baltimore Action Legal Team works for the Movement for Black Lives in Baltimore City through a combination of different programs like litigation, community education, and direct service providing. And Dwan, would you like to say a little bit about what Out for Justice does?
Sure. Out for Justice is a nonprofit based in Baltimore that focuses on policy reform for individuals who have been directly or indirectly impacted by the criminal legal system. And so, we work in spaces to reform or create policies that help remove barriers so folks can successfully re-enter society and have opportunities for jobs, work, housing, etc. So we do a lot of different things. We're not a direct service, but we do offer some, and we refer out for those that we don't have in-house. So yes.
Thank you for that. And I'll just say Out for Justice is one of our, very valued partners. So, thank you for all the great work that you do in the community, especially in East Baltimore. So why don't we get started, with some introductions. And in terms of the topic for tonight, we're talking about navigating parenthood in the court system. When we think about family law, what is it like to show up as a parent, or more specifically, thinking of Father's Day coming up soon, what is it like to be a father or Black father in the court system, which is set up in a specific way? What does it mean to be a father in that context? If you're getting, custody of your child or attempting to, if you're dealing with child support, how do those things affect your experience or your ability to parent? And so we have some great panelists tonight, which include people who are directly impacted, as well as people who work with people who are directly impacted by this system. And so to start off, let's just do a little tech tutorial. And I should mention that this is being recorded. We will be posting this to YouTube later on, as well as live streaming currently on Facebook, just so everyone's aware. But again, this is navigating parenthood. And so if anyone is new to Zoom, on the bottom left, you'll see on this toolbar here, the mute and unmute button. If you'd like to chime in at any time, you're more than welcome to, but just be conscious of when your mic's on or off so that there's no noise distractions. But we encourage you to chime in. If you'd like to show up on camera, there's the camera button right there. You can also use the chat button if you're not comfortable, or if you'd like something to just be put out there, but you don't want to interrupt necessarily. And if you need to leave, there's the end call button. So our first panelist is Charlene Dukes. And Charlene is someone I know very well, a co-founder of BALT, and also someone who's been very committed to this kind of work. And so Charlene, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, I will. So I'm Charlene Dukes, and I also work in a division we call the CINA division, also the Parental Defense Division. And one of the things that happens there is that we represent parents and guardians where the state is either has or is attempting to take their children away. And so this is an area that's near and dear to my heart, and I look forward to speaking on it and answering any questions that anyone may have.
Great, thank you so much. We look forward to hearing more from you. And the second panelist tonight is Darrius Humphrey. And Darrius is showing up as a father tonight. And Darrius, could you also introduce yourself?
You're muted, Mr. Humphrey, you're muted. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yes, my name is Darrius Humphrey. I come from Flint, Michigan. I am definitely a father and impacted person. I have 6 children, and I have definitely fought to be a major part of their life. And so I just wanted to show up in this space and kind of speak to my experiences and encourage other fathers as well as be encouraged.
Awesome. Thank you as well. So we also have an attorney, Jonathan Newton, joining us tonight. And Jonathan, could you tell us more about yourself?
Certainly. I'm Jonathan Newton. I practice law here in Prince George's County in the state, throughout the state of Maryland. I primarily do criminal defense work, but my office also does handle family law. Interestingly enough, I do some panel work with the CINA department up in Baltimore City with parental defense. And so I have an interest in this area of practice because my father was incarcerated throughout most of my young adult life. And then some of my family members, did the thing where they kind of kept him away from us as we got older. And so this is, he wanted to assert his rights. And I felt like that at that time, I didn't even know that was an issue. But as I got into practice, I saw these patterns emerge over and over and over again. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we had Coach Mike Wilson on the roster. I believe that he is not able to join at the moment. So why don't we move on? We also invited someone from the Center for Urban Families to speak, Eddie White. Eddie, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and the work?
Yes, yes, thank you. My name is Eddie White. Currently, I serve as a case manager for the Center for Urban Families, as well as a co-facilitator for our fatherhood initiatives, where we are engaging fathers to be more actively and positively involved in the lives of their children, helping them to transition through different situations that impedes that process.
Great, thank you so much. And so for, the panelists, I, would like to start by centering people who are, directly impacted. I always think that's important. We talk about systems that act in certain ways, but really who is interfacing with that system firsthand. And so, I'd like to start with you, Darrius, and as Darrius speaks, anyone else, please feel free to chime in, ask any questions or add any comments. What does fatherhood mean to you? And what does fatherhood mean to you in the court system in your experience?
Well, definitely the court system is, I don't even think they address the question. I don't think they really think about it, even though they say on their websites and in their creeds that they do. Fatherhood for me is just showing up for your kid. What I have learned is that at the end of the day for kids, because I've been a kid myself, and I think I've also been a teacher, and so I listen to kids talk about their fathers almost all the time, and it's just they want you there, right? They want you there. They need to be able to talk to you. They need to be able to see you. They need to be able to interact with you. I'm 40 years old now, but I went through a hard time at 33, and and I still needed my dad. So I don't think there's ever a point where a child doesn't, need their dad. I don't care how bad they are. And my mom likes to remind me, she was like, even, dads on death row, their kids can come and see them, right? So that's always the point. And I think sometimes the system just looks at us as just a way to provide, but it's so much more. Like, kids don't care about child support. Kids ain't never got it. Kids don't see about it. Kids don't care about it. So it's just being able to see and interact with their dad. And so a lot of times I feel like dads have to perform to be able to get to their kids. Dads have to answer questions. Literally just today, I was sitting in a workspace where, you know, we have clients and, you know, the child is suffering some abuse from the mother, and, you know, but meanwhile, you know, the dad is, you know, just struggling. And he said, you know, he was like, you know, they came after me for child support, you know, and they're so busy, you know, coming after me, you know, at all these different ways, but you know, they never really stopped to look at the kid and what the kid was suffering, you know, with the mom. And so, you know, it can be just hard trudging as a father in the system. Is unrelenting, and it just doesn't change. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll let everyone else kind of chime in. I remember sitting with a clerk and an advocate, because literally I had 5 children. I had moved back to Michigan with my family. I have all of them here, but all the resources are set up for my kids and their mother in Maryland. So Michigan is like, you know, we see the kids here with us. They're sitting in front of us. You have to release the services in Maryland, so that we can give the kids aid in Michigan. And they're like, we don't care about the dad. We don't care about that. We are sitting here looking at 5 kids. And, you know, Maryland just called and we was all on the phone together. And the clerk was just like, you know, I'm sorry, Mr. Humphrey, the system is just really not set up to recognize fathers and really help them get through these difficult times. And so hopefully it changes soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you know, you raised a lot of, you know, things that we could unpack, honestly. I kind of want to open it up to the panelists, actually. You know, like, did anything that Darrius say just now, did any issues that he raised resonate with you? Or, you know, whether you work with a father in the context of like case management or in the law, you know, do you see those kinds of things yourself?
Absolutely. I think what Darrius said, that fathers have to perform, I've seen that, you know, that was well said. It almost seems as though when a father asserts his right to be a father in the court system, he comes and he's almost having to prove that he's trying to be a father, as opposed to him being taken on neutral grounds with the presumption of fatherhood, that you know, he's here and he's asserting his rights, and he would, you know, like to participate in the life of his child. And so knowing that the courts, some of the courts, and I want to be clear here, there are certain courtrooms and even certain jurisdictions that are becoming more equal, and the biases are less and less pronounced. And so when we see those courtrooms and you see them operate, they start off from a standpoint of nobody has anything to prove. But when you start into a custody matter, the court's looking at certain factors to determine what's in the best interest of the child. And at some point, both parties have to start to prove their position in order to, because both parties are often coming saying, by the time we reach that stage of the process, we're in a litigated custody matter, both parties are on opposite ends of the pole in terms of what they want. One is saying, I want sole legal custody or sole primary physical custody of the child, and I don't want the child to be with the other party. And so at some point, the father's always going to have to perform, or at least tell his side of the story, so that he can get, you know, primary physical custody or even joint legal custody. He's going to have to tell the court, you know, what it is. Why is it in the best interest of the child for the ruling to be the way that he desires? But that presumption, it is pronounced in some courts and less pronounced in others. So I've definitely seen what he's talking about. It's discomforting because you see patterns emerge. I do think in our criminal justice system and inside the civil system with family law, courts see so much of these types of cases, they literally start building patterns and routines, and that take everybody as though this is just going to be another case like the last one. And oftentimes that is not the case. and you have to do extra work to show the court, hey, this is not exactly like the last case. And this doesn't deserve a ruling like the last case. In fact, we would like to have the court give us a full opportunity to give a presentation that is worthy of the seriousness of this matter. And in certain jurisdictions, they're overwhelmed with the cases, and they lack the resources, and so sometimes they give you these very brief hearings. So, but I definitely see what Mr. Humphrey is saying.
Yeah, I like to chime in. Again, my name is Eddie White, currently serving as all-in case manager at Center for Urban Families, as well as a fatherhood advocate. Do very much appreciate your struggle, my brother. I deal with that every day. But you know, when we start talking about fatherhood, there is no, there's a broad definition. It is so broad. But if you try to narrow it down, you know, we want to talk about a father doing everything that he can do to be positively and actively engaged in the life of his child. The mission is to make sure that he makes that selfless sacrifice to deal with whatever he has to deal with so that his child can have the best quality of life that he can provide. The system is what it is. I mean, and definitely the system, there needs to be changes in the system. But I think I heard somebody mention a little bit earlier, children don't know about the system. They don't know, you know, they care about the engagement of their dad, you know, and us being fathers on the other end that may have to deal with the system, you know, have to deal with those challenges and those struggles. And we need politicians to be more involved. We need people involved that can make changes in the system that is inclusive of fathers being supported if they have to go through the system. If a father has to go through the system via trying to get custody. I deal with fathers all the time who have the child physically in their custody, right? They have the child physically in their custody, but they still have to pay child support. And when they go through the court to file it's a document process. It's pretty tedious. I mean, and that's where we would really like to have that pro bono service from lawyers to help fathers just fill out those documents. I mean, it's just a maze. It's just a maze. But in the interim, a father still has to deal with that if he has to deal with the system. And what we want to do at our program is we want to help them navigate that the best we can, provide services that would support him on the other end so that he can become financially, so he can have financial stability, so that he can have his own, so he can develop himself, going through some of the services that we offer. And that way he can better provide a support for his child.
Thank you. Ms. Charlene, would you like to chime in about your experience and what you see in any tools or what you think might be helpful for a father experiencing some of the things that Mr. Humphrey mentioned?
So I'm going to add that I'm not a father, but I definitely represent a number of fathers, and I can relate from that perspective and seeing the struggle that they have. I think it's presumed that the women should be the parent, and so you have to overcome the fact that the judge and the court system and the entire system is set up to assist the women. One of the things that I also think that is very difficult for the men is that they want men to parent the way that women parent. And sometimes there's not a recognition that there's different ways to parent, and that we need to provide those resources and allow fathers to parent as fathers and not expect them to do it the same way a woman does.
Thank you. I'll piggyback on that myself, I think. And I, as a mother and co-parenting, whether you're co-parenting and a relationship with your co-parents or you're, separating, I think it is important to recognize that there are different parenting styles. And just because you want things done a certain way does not mean that your way is the right way, or that someone else's parenting style is, harmful to the child or children. And I think a public statement, Will Smith talked about how he dealt with co-parenting with his ex-wife, Cherie, and that it was really difficult once they separated and got a divorce, and how they were parenting their child because she wanted him to do things a certain way. And he's like, that didn't work for me. Like, I want to parent my child the way I want to. And so it's important that we allow space and grace for parents, as long as they're not doing anything that is harmful, to be able to be the parents and have that relationship with their child or children. So I just wanted to piggyback off of that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and so we've talked about this idea of, I guess, performance or being performative because of the assumption that the woman should be the mother, the parent with the full custody. And so since that's come up, I'm wondering, what does it actually mean in like a real world sense? Like, what does it mean to have to perform? Like, what are the things that you have to be doing to try to show a judge that you deserve custody? Because although it's not a good system, it is a system that exists, unfortunately. And so like, I guess like, what would you advise or, suggest to someone in that situation?
So I'll tell you, we have a checklist that we use in our office. It's so the first thing is consistency with communication to the parent, to the other biological parent, about wanting to exercise your right for access and visitation. Oftentimes the opposing party, whether it be a mother or a father, will come and say, well, this person just doesn't interact at all. And so we suggest that, you constantly, at least once or twice a week, send an email or a text message to the mother that, I'd like to pick up my child this weekend, or whatever the time period is. The other thing is that in terms of once you get your child, take pictures of the activities that you do so that you showcase, the time that you have with your child, that you're engaged. The things is that essentially people, I hate saying this like this, I don't want to come across as biased, but oftentimes when a mother is really trying to either alienate or stifle a father from being involved in the child's life, it's the same sort of complaints over and over and over again, that they don't consistently do pickups, they don't engage with the child, they don't pay any support. And so to the extent that's not true, or that you want to prove to the court, not only do I pick up, not only do I support my child either financially or otherwise, and exercise my access visitation, I keep journals, and here's my collage of things that I do with my child. And so we ask our clients to do that, and that is exactly what that performance that Mr. Humphrey is talking about. We have to come in there and literally show, because it's almost like in the criminal system where Black men are deemed guilty until proven innocent. In the civil system, it's Black men are deemed, not to be good fathers until they prove that they are good fathers. And I think that that can be overcome sometimes, but that's the performative nature that I would speak to.
Yeah, one of the changes I would hope could possibly be, like, there needs to be a shorter process maybe for a second opinion. So when we're talking performance, I speak from a very current situation. I literally have my daughter with me because of the restraining order between her and her mother. I have custody of her now, but because the judge, for whatever reason, is still fighting to let the mother keep legal custody of her. And I just sit up there. The judge actually said to me one time, I should call her name, but I won't. And she just said in the camera, she's like, you just feel like you're being treated unfair, don't you, Mr. Humphrey? And I'm like, absolutely. Because at one point, so how I got my daughter is that my two oldest daughters basically got into it with their mother. And between them and their mother, everybody arrived at the fact that they need to go to their dad's house. So on one end, on one end, the mother is saying that I was so confident that he could get everybody together that I literally sent the 2 children to him. Now, so come a year and a half later, after 3 continuance, she's trying to prove that I don't trust that he's capable of taking care of her. Well, I've taken care of her for the last 2 years, and you sent her to me because you needed my help. You said she's good, but now that the restraining order is out and they want to give me permanent custody of her, you're like, I don't think that's the best fit. So that's what we mean about performance, is that over and over again, I need overwhelming evidence to overchange the situation when it really shouldn't take that. And even in the face of overwhelming evidence, they still won't rule in your favor. So that's why, because I like to, have solutions to things, not just complain about the problems. I think there should be, like, maybe even if it's a panel or a second opinion, because, if you get a judge who thinks that women's way is right and that whole thing, you can get torpedoed very easily. And what's a shame is, I think some of the panelists could agree, and I'm experienced of it, is that these judges, I don't think they realize that they have literally children's lives in their hands, and that their decisions kind of dictate the outcome. Like my daughter was on a very harsh track. Like she was in and out of outpatient, inpatient. Mother couldn't do anything with her. She came with me, totally different scenario. So it's a very big deal.
From our legal practitioners, attorneys, are there any other times where there's an opportunity for a panel or a jury to actually participate in like a civil matter like custody or child support? Like, is there an option for that where you could have multiple people instead of one judge?
Unfortunately, not. In civil family matters, you're not entitled to a jury trial. I find it, even for termination of parental rights, which is the functional equivalent of a death penalty in my case, in my mind, I had a way to keep my lights on. You're not entitled to a jury, and so all of this decision making is vested in one person, the judge of your particular case. And so if you read the appellate decisions, you'll find out that most of the time the appellate courts are not going to disturb many of the decisions that the trial court determines, and they give them wide discretion to hear those facts because they're closer to the facts that are being tried in their courtrooms. And I think there can be a better way. It needs to be suggested, that we at least have even a reduced jury panel for some of these cases, because also it would take some of the pressure off of the judges. And I'll be frank with you, when you hear the judges tell folks in court, listen, I'm about to make a decision about your child after I hear this evidence, and I only have known you all one day. When I hear that, I'm like, it strikes me that first off, they are concerned about the decisions that they make, but also they're also saying that they don't have enough information sometimes in the brevity of time that they have to be able to make these types of decisions. And so there should be another way that needs to be pushed forward and through legislation to entitle litigants to a smaller jury panel, even like six members. I would agree with that.
So by no means am I a lawyer or a legal person, but I've had a myriad of experiences with situations with men who's come through our organization. And what my experience has been is each case per case has always been based on circumstances. When a father is deemed non-custodial, that's a title. That's a title in the court, and there's certain things that comes under that non-custodial title, and that's one of the things that I always try to work with men to get them out of that non-custodial title, because fathers have rights, but you have to file for all of your rights in the court if you're a non-custodial parent. And so just trying to make sure that when the judge appoints a mediator, the mediator is supposed to assess the father's ability to adequately take care of the child for whatever degree of custody that they're filing for. And so that opens up the door to just a whole lot of things. But what I have experienced with the men that I have worked with thus far over the last 20 years is that, you know, it depends on the circumstances. It could be depending on the circumstances of the child, medical conditions, the father's financial stability, his ability to have adequate housing. I mean, there's a whole lot of things involved in that process. And the court, to my knowledge, is supposed to be concerned about the welfare and well-being of the child. And so the mediator usually will try to see if there's an opportunity for co-parenting, you know, so that we can be able to support that if we can. If that can't happen, then they'll make decisions based on the circumstances of both parties involved. But I try to work hard with getting men out of that non-custodial status, because that right there is, you know, you got to deal with the court, and it's just a maze. There's just a lot of things involved in dealing with the court when you're a non-custodial parent and you're trying to get custody. You have to jump through a whole lot of hoops. And I mean, I don't, you know, I encourage them, do what you got to do. If you got to do that, then do that, you know, because you are the father of that child and you have a responsibility to be, to do whatever you can do to make sure that child knows that they have a loving father in their life. But when it comes to the court system, and for a non-custodial parent, it could be bad. It could be really bad, challenging.
I want to chime in here a little bit about helping folks understand what should be done in some of these custody cases so that they can set themselves up to at least, I don't want to say win, but come out with a favorable outcome. So that, because we do know that this system is set up in the way that it is set up. When folks come into this office, we go through the process so that they understand what we're getting ready to face. It's not me against the court system. It's not them against the court system. It's us trying to get an outcome. And so there's essentially 4 primary areas that we work in at the same time. One is essentially a pretrial preparation, which is we give assignments to our clients. You got to go and get all of your documentation. Is there already an order put in place? If there's no order put in place, then we're looking to establish an order. If there's an order put in place and it's not being followed, the opposing party is just basically shut down. We're looking to enforce that order and also potentially seek a modification of that order to give our client the custody that he does not get through the order that's already put in place. At the same time, procedurally, we're looking at, is this in the right venue? Is it in the right courthouse? Because oftentimes children have moved around with their mothers. And like Mr. Humphrey's situation, he is in Michigan at this time. And this court is still exercising jurisdiction over this particular matter. And it sounds like that child has been in the state of Michigan for quite some time now. And Michigan has a state interest in making sure that that child is taken care of. And from what I gathered is that this Maryland courts are still exercising jurisdiction. And not only that, but the child is possibly getting benefits down here in Maryland that she could be getting while she's up there with Mr. Humphrey. And so you want to look at this procedurally. Is that, is this the child's home state under the law? If the child has moved up there and been up there for more than 6 months, how does Mr. Humphrey register that order that's currently here up there in the state of Michigan so that he can then modify that up there and make the mom fight on that turf up there, as opposed to him having to come down here to fight on her turf with judges that know her and or they might be more familiar with the situation. But all of that goes into this, and it is, as Mr. White said, each one of these cases is complex in and of itself because they have different fact sets. But when you really break them down into their elements to be able to prepare, there's a pre-trial preparation, there's a procedural preparation that needs to be happening on behalf of the client, there's a trial preparation. We need to be preparing to tell his story in court through an opening argument, through the presentation of witnesses, through the presentation of exhibits, and through a closing argument. And once that happens, I'm not saying all the time, but you do get better results. I had a case in Montgomery County. My client came in and I told him up front, what the odds of us being successful are. And we were able to get him a result that not only did he ended up with full legal custody of his child, I was surprised, but I worked the system and I learned that system through reading books and getting educated. And I'm not talking bad about any other attorneys, but you really want to get yourself educated rather than just depending on us, because we might have the licenses and we have the certificates from the schools, the diplomas from the schools, but it's very easy to come out here into practice or to run across somebody who's new into practice and doesn't know a lot of solutions to be able to fight on your behalf. And so it's really incumbent upon the fathers to really dig into this stuff, because the information is out there. And then also there are attorneys who are willing to share free information so that you can litigate some of these matters on your own. We do have a lot of printed forms here in the state of Maryland, which can get the process started. But once you get into it, there's little things that you need to know to be able to present in a courtroom properly to be able to get the outcome that you want to get.
One of the challenges that I deal with often is with fathers who have some degree of custody, either by way of partial, full, or joint, and the custodial parent not adhering to the custody situation. The father feels, I've had some of them end up in jail, and that shouldn't happen. But just trying to find a way to have them get what the judge said they are due by way of being a non-custodial parent. If there is an estranged relationship between the mother and the father of the child, and the mother is the custodial parent, and for whatever reason, even though the court has established a certain degree of custodial time for the father, the mother, for whatever reason, chooses not to follow through with that, and it becomes a challenge for the father. It becomes a challenge for the father because a lot of times the police don't want to be involved. Police really, they don't want to be involved in that domestic stuff. They don't. And so, yeah, I'd like to hear if anybody had those kind of challenges, and have you had any solutions?
Well, unfortunately, what I can say to that is you got to be ready to be in for a long fight. You got to be ready to go. Like, if you are not ready to go, you can forget about it. It's go hard or go home.
That's right.
And you gotta stick with it, right? So you have to be willing to go to whatever length she is willing to go on you. You got to be willing to do the same. Let me give you a result. I don't know how many times the cops have come to my place, and CPS is the same way. So this is the game. Once those kids are in your care, they don't care about a court order. They don't care about anything else. It stops right there. They're in your care. So so the mother of my child put 4 kids in an Uber. The kids didn't know where the mother was. I wasn't sure when the last time they ate. And the kids are going to want to protect their mother. And they're also told, we don't talk to the cops. So sends them over in the Uber, don't know where they came from, don't know what's going on. They look all wild, unkept. And the police officer was like, I refuse to call CPS. I refuse to make a report of this. And it wasn't to the person, another person involved in the situation who just kept getting on me like, no, you have to go say something. So I ended up having to go down to the police station, find the sergeant in charge, and the sergeant had to recall that officer and make him file the report. See, so, and so it's just, so men, a lot of times we're just kind of, we just want peace. We just want to chill. So if it hadn't been for somebody else, I would have just been like, okay, the heck with it, right? But that's a very big deal because then, and somebody said it earlier, documentation is so key because I have learned by them courts, they really don't care what you got to say, either of you, to be honest. It ain't about what you got to say, it's about what you prove. Like if some person comes up talking and you don't do no talking and you just hand over some documentation, you won because they don't care about what you said, right? They care about documentation and what's the facts. And I'm going off of that. So that documentation, the police officer didn't think it was that important. But for me, it was hugely important because that went into part of the restraining order and different things. So that report was so key. So a lot of times men let, I don't want to say let them off the hook, but that's kind of how we feel. We like, oh, we don't want no drama. And like, no, you have to do whatever it takes. You better be ready for a fight and you better bring it all the way.
Mr. Humphrey speaks facts. He knows exactly the process. And when they come to my office, I'm like, listen, you don't have your game. You don't understand what's getting ready to happen here. A lot of guys even think that this stuff is going to be resolved in a matter of a couple of weeks because they just plunked down $3,000 or $4,000. And I'm like, listen, this is going to be an up and down, pride swallowing siege in order for you to get what you're trying to get from the courts. And so another thing is what he just said is true. It doesn't matter what you think, feel, hope, wish, desire, or believe. It only matters in court what you can prove. And oftentimes, clients come in with, I think she's doing this. I believe she's doing this. I think she's, and I'm like, listen, I can't do anything with that. Show me some text messages. Show me some audio recording. Show me something that can help us build this factual house so that we can get an outcome. Otherwise, if she gets another attorney on it, I tell people, I'm just a sophisticated house builder. I build the house based on the materials that you give me. And if you give me some good materials, the house will be able to withstand the blows of the other attorney. But if you give me some shabby materials, once another attorney just blows on it a little bit, and sometimes even if it's a pro se person blows on it a little bit, the house comes collapsing down. So it's also advisable to understand the timeline. As soon as you file, it's almost like, we're on a timeline. There's going to be a scheduling conference that's put together, and that's going to set the dynamics moving forward for the hearing. And once you get educated on the process, you need to start moving on gathering your evidence, which is exhibits, getting your people together, which are your witnesses, and also subpoenaing documents that would help you prove your case. When most of the guys, and Mr. Humphrey just, he said it, we kind of just want peace. And so this is not a peaceful process. At all. They call it civil law, but it's very uncivil at times because of some of the things that are done. And they're done with, you're not really allowed to lose your cool. You're not allowed to become emotional. And we're dealing with people's kids. And so I completely get it. I get it out of the mothers and I get it out of the fathers. And but what he said is facts. You really have to strap yourself in, and the destination is sometimes it's months away. I will say this, and this is, if you have a situation where the mother is just saying, hey, I'm not going to abide by the court's rules, file your petition for contempt immediately, okay? Immediately. Don't wait, document the fact that you've got an access and visitation schedule, communicate that you're trying to exercise your right to comply with that order, and then if she doesn't respond, great. File your motion for contempt. You communicated to be able to do the things that you need to do that the court has ordered you to do. And when we show up to court, we say, Your Honor, this person here, they don't care what you have to say. And that kind of tease the judges off a little bit. And it puts the onus on that person to have to now explain, well, why didn't you comply with this order, sir or ma'am? And when that happens, oftentimes you win the heart of the judge, and then you can get the outcome that you want. The other thing I want to point out is if your child has experienced anything like abuse or neglect, being put in a car and sent off into the wilderness to come to you via Uber, you might want to consider filing a protective order against the mother, which will automatically, in many of the courts, trigger a CPS investigation from the courts, because the courts will want to know what's going on that this situation happened. So they will, get CPS involved, DSS involved to do an investigation of the allegations that you're bringing up. Now, I'm not saying always do that, please, because sometimes you can be opening up a rabbit's hole. But if you're got a situation where your kids have experienced some abuse, some real abuse, and some neglect, that's something that you might want to consider, rather than depending on the local police department, because the local police department, I used to be a police officer. Cops hate dealing with this because after they're in. They got to follow this through. They might be called to testify in these hearings, and so you're dealing with that. So I empathize with what fathers do go through, and I hope that my tips are good.
Well, as we can hear, the challenges that fathers go through on the system side, like systemically, the system is what it is. It is what it is. And one of the things that we do at the Center for Urban Families through our Fatherhood Initiative is we want men to be informed about the system, about what they're up against. You got to be informed. You got to get the information so you can know how to manage to get things done without you ending up on the wrong side of the situation. And the other thing is, it can be very tedious because if CPS gets involved, that could turn the tables another way. And so with all of that being said, the fact is fathers still have to parent. Fathers still have to be fathers. They still have to be actively and positively engaged in the well-being and in the life of their children, whatever the situation is. And so, I just believe that, yeah, definitely there needs to be changes in the system without a doubt. Why they not making those changes, I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is fathers do want to be in their child's life. Fathers do. They do want to be in their children's life. And sometimes they need some support. Sometimes they need, just need a little guidance or whatever, but they do want to actively be a part of the child's life. That's what I have experienced overall.
Charlene, I saw you unmute yourself. Would you like to comment on this?
I did. I just wanted to jump in on the CPS investigation because I think it is very important to understand and very much caution against getting CPS involved. And here's why. When CPS is involved, the investigation is on you as well. They are not simply investigating one parent. In order for there to be the neglect and abuse and the change of custody, they are looking at both of you. So when you walk in the door, when CPS is called, you're as much under investigation as the mother is. And you need to recognize that that's what it is. And then as a result of that, what you have is the Department of Social Services can determine whether to file a petition and then for them to take care and custody. And then you have no decision-making power over it. So it is you need to be very cautious about that move and ensure your real goal is to work through it and to maintain the children without getting them involved. Because recognize that when CPS is involved, their involvement is to investigate both parents and make a determination as to whether both parents have neglected or abused the child. It's not just one. And so often when I see them, a parent has called on another, but in the process, they are being investigated and the children end up in foster care, or they end up with relatives, or you go down a path where you will not get to see the child, or you see the child 1 hour a week through the Department of Social Services. So I just want to very much caution against that, and for people to understand that that call to CPS is neglect and abuse of both parents, that both parents are under investigation in that moment, even when the person calling is the parent. So I just need to be clear about that.
Yeah. I don't know what time we ending. Oh, did she finish?
8:30.
I don't know what time we ended, but I won't mess with the CPS thing. I've had my experience with them too, especially when I was a teacher. So the only thing I can say about that is that I feel like members of CPS definitely feel this way, and I think it's kind of true. We always look at them as just negative, and we think the only time that they get involved is to take away children. And they will tell you they don't have enough places to put the children that they have. So there's not their first goal to take away children. Now, if parents want to be non-compliant and want to be all some type of way, then yeah, they'll write it up how they have to. But their first goal is to try to stabilize the situation. That's the most important thing for them. But I really want to comment on kind of the uplifting factor. I don't know who, I forgot the name of the gentleman. He's right in front of me. But talking about fathers, and what I want to say is like, the kids want their fathers in their life, and as heartbreaking and as difficult as it is, it's worth it. It's worth it as a dad every single step of the way, every penny, every minute that you fight to be in those kids' lives, they appreciate it. And my babies, I have to shout them out because the interviewer came out to interview them. They didn't know that I was going to get to see the report, but I was just so blessed by my son because he didn't have anything to say about his mother when they asked him. He was like, no comment. Was the best I could say. He said, but my dad, he said, I am going through a lot right now, and my dad helps me get my life together, and I really want to spend some time with my dad. My baby girl was like, when I go around my dad and his lady, they take care of me, they make me feel so special. And the other kids said something similar. And so in that moment, it's like, as a father, it's like, it's all worth it, right? So I think that's one of the things that kids get a sense of it. They get a sense of the time and effort and how much they mean to you. And they have no problem expressing it a lot of times, that they love you and they care about you. So I think that's one thing for uplifting, is that, yeah, it's gonna be a long, hard fight, but your kids, they'll definitely appreciate it because, there's nothing like having a father in their life.
Yeah, I think that's a really great note to, shift gears on. So thank you, Darrius. And thanks everyone for the really great, conversation and advice on, how can we prepare fathers maybe going to the court system? Like, what are the things to know about that you need to do or not do? I want to get to Dwan's question on decriminalization as we think about systems change, because the experience of individual fathers is important, but we also have to think about what are the systems that exist that disadvantage people. And so, with decriminalization, especially thinking about what are the intersections of systems, knowing how systemic racism and anti-Blackness show up in every single system that we have. It's rarely the case with my clients as a community lawyer, for example, where someone's only dealing with one problem at a time, right? It's the confluence or like the intersection of multiple problems. And so as we think about the criminal system, for example, how do we decriminalize custody issues? And how do we decriminalize the lack or the inability to provide monetary support for the non-custodial parent? Whoever would like to speak to that.
I got a simple suggestion. I always say the courts can only deal with, there's two aspects, your time and your money. And so since it's really hard to adjudicate your time, most of the time they want to adjudicate your money. But in my thing, instead of sending a father to jail, right, for a monetary issue, and you need to be able to address this time issue. So be like, instead of spending in jail, listen, you got to spend this time with your child. You got to provide whatever. And if he doesn't comply, then, right, then maybe send him to, then maybe do the thing, but the jail thing. But my thing is, you got time and money. Most of the time we want to fight over the money and not over the time. And many times I find the father will have the child, right? And as a teacher and anybody who's been around kids in school, let me tell you this. We share it. It's a very common occurrence. You can tell Monday morning, you can tell when that kid has been over his father's house for the weekend, because they come in with a different swag. They come in, looking all different. Normally the father then taking them out and got them got them together. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many kids walk in that classroom. I'm like, you was over your dad's house this weekend. Yep. I mean, my kids were definitely that way. My teachers would call me and tell me, they're like, you got your kid, let me tell you what we expect you to do, blah, blah, blah. So instead of just throwing them in a jail cell for not financially supporting their child, how about you support with your time? So which would you rather do? Spend your time in jail or spend your time with your child? And I think that would help the benefit of the child, which is what the whole system should be about in the first place.
I'm one to say automatically there are many changes that needs to happen in the system. I'm just not sure how to go about it. That's the thing, because a lot of the systems that are in place have been in place for eons. They've been, it's like how to go about it. One of the drastic things I do believe needs to happen is the definition, non-custodial and custodial parent. That needs to be looked at in a more inclusive way, as opposed to exclusive. Where the father can be looked at to be more in the process, unless there is some, reason why he shouldn't, in terms of some body issue or something, something, assault or something like that. But especially where fathers want to be involved. That's the thing, where fathers want to be involved. What the system, and like my brother was just talking about, why can't we find a way to work the system to help the father to continue to be involved and to support him in that process, to continue to be actively involved in a child's life, as opposed to the system creating that void, that space, that separation, being a part of making that separation wider. But definitely, I'm just not sure, how do we go about challenging the system for change? How do we do that?
I want to jump in here. Right now, we deal with a system that simply penalizes people for doing bad things or what they deem bad things. When you look at how they deal with corporations, they incentivize them to do good things through tax credits, through gift. So I would say, kind of apply that same thought pattern with fathers and mothers to do good things. For instance, there are tons of tax credits that can be given to a father for transportation that he has to go back and forward, for housing things that, not only tax credits, but subsidies that can be given. We subsidize all kinds of things when it comes to corporations, but we don't subsidize anything when it comes to individuals. Father wants to take his kid out to Six Flags, but he's not a person of means to be able to do that. There should be some mechanism inside this state. Maryland is one of the richest states in the country. We have one of the highest per capita incomes in the nation. But when it comes to people who are not of means, we don't give any support to them. And so we do give meager support to them, but incentivize rather than just penalize. And I think the question really goes to this. if we're talking about decriminalizing, which it should be, it should not be, where you're facing jail. And I think that those are the extraordinary cases of people who are not paying and don't come to court, and then they get a body attachment put out after them. But most people, even when they come to court and they're making they're not making much income at all. Once they tell the court, listen, I make $300 a week, I can give her $100 or $50, which is a full third or even more. Courts aren't apt to put somebody in jail, most of them that I've seen. Now, I imagine there might be some people on some benches in some jurisdictions that will still incarcerate somebody for being in contempt. But I'm just hoping that we can get to the point in this generation, I'll be 50 years old this year, that the next generation sees a better model in incentivizing people as opposed to penalizing people. We do things, our motivations are fear, fame, and fortune. I won't do something that I'm scared of the outcome. I'll do something where I'm going to be paid to do it. I'll do something where someone's going to even give me accolades. We need to have walls of fame for fathers and for mothers and for people who are actually doing the work of parenting, because it's really a tough job in this day and age. When we're talking $5 a gallon for some gas, it's tough right now to be able to parent a child, to house a child in this market, and so I hope that when we talk to our legislators, because you have to go to your legislators with ideas and hope the legislator hears this. Incentivize through gift cards. I bet you could find all kinds of things that the state of Maryland pays for to incentivize corporations to come here and do business. And we could incentivize moms and dads to be able to do a better job of parenting or even participating in, not just a better job, but actually have more access and more time with their children.
Yeah, I think we've had some great ideas so far. And I do want to get to, I'm glad you brought up the legislation, the legislative aspect, because I want to get to that and what OFJ does with their advocacy. But before switching gears again, Charlene, is there anything specific you can think of? Like what kind of systems change would you like to see in terms of decriminalization?
So there are a lot of systems, but I do want to piggyback on one issue, and that is the incentive. And I think an area that needs changing and can be done, in a sort of something that can be done now, and that would be the changing the child support laws. I mean, one of the biggest issues that I see, particularly with representing indigent individuals, are that when one seeks services from the Department of Social Services and they receive those services, that they automatically file child support against the other parent. And the laws surrounding them receiving the money, it doesn't go directly to the child in any way. The money goes to the Department of Social Services, and it doesn't directly impact how the child lives. And that's simply a policy matter and an issue where we've said we want to hold one parent accountable when it doesn't in any way directly impact the child. And so it does really go to incentivizing and determining how we see this and not penalizing parents, because in that situation, the child does not get any of the money. The money goes directly to DSS. And it goes directly to the Department of Social Services. And that is currently how it is addressed. That's currently what the law allows. And it is currently the process and the system that we use. And I think it's one that we can change and we should advocate for immediately.
Thank you for commenting on that. I know that's a very large issue that a lot of advocates in Maryland have been organizing around, improving child support laws. And for anyone who's unfamiliar, what are some of the collateral consequences of those child support laws and maybe not being able to afford child support? What happens in that case?
Child support in Baltimore City has a couple of incentive programs that I'm aware of, whereby fathers that are not employed and have a court order to pay child support, they have a couple of programs that they work with fathers to refer them to agencies such as Center for Urban Families that can support them with becoming gainfully employed so that they can begin to pay their child support. And they also have other programs as well. But if a father is when they go to court for the court order, if they're not able to pay, the judge is going to order him to get a job. And if he is physically able, he's going to order him to get a job. He's going to get a certain amount of time, 3 to 6 months, before he comes back to show cause. So those are the kind of things that happen. If an order goes in place, then the non-custodial parent has to show why he can't pay. If it's just behind the fact that he don't have the money, but if he's able-bodied, the court is going to order him to get a job. That's what's going to happen.
Well, I think going back to the prior point, I think also something that could be addressed is the best way I can explain it is the way that we calculate child support. So I'm trying to see how to frame it in my mind. So basically, it should be, and it may even be written up this way, but basically it's almost like an all or nothing. So once you become the custodial parent, even if you don't have the child, say 50% of the time, 100% of the resources and everything still goes to you. So I can't speak for other people, but I know I can't be the only one experiencing. So what the mother does is she gets put down as the custodial parent, but all the time the kid spends with me, right? So one of the big beefs, even if it's not like that, one of the big beefs that men have is that, okay, we get the summers. I got the child for the whole summer. I got to provide things during the whole summer. So I got to make sure they got housing, they got food, and even more so because when they're in school, at least that's about 8, hours or whatever. I got them 24/7, and I'm struggling to take care of this child during the summertime, and I'm still paying you max amount of child support. All because, so it should be, okay, look, you got them during this time, you got them during that time, and then put that all calculated and put it that way. But you shouldn't force a man to have his children during the summertime, and he still got to worry about how to pay child support. So, and then when it comes to showing up and not being able to afford to pay, I'm a little cross about that because I can't kill the system when it doesn't work, but not praise it when it does. And so I feel like I've seen those judges work with people. I've seen them work with people. So I think the issue is you cannot be non-compliant. So if you come and say, I can't pay, you can't come and say, I can't pay with an attitude, right? And the judge may even come at you in a way that you don't like, but you gotta stay humble and just be like, look, I'm here. You ain't have to come and find me. I'm telling you what my situation is. Can you please help me? Most of the time, them judges, they'll go with it. I'm not saying that you don't run into a judge or two that won't, but most of the time they will. But it's about having that compliant heart. And that takes somebody, talking to you before you get in there, like, look, get out your feelings. You're about to go for this judge and, ask her to have mercy on you.
Yeah, I've stood in court with a lot of men under those circumstances. One of the things that I think that we all could take into account is that there are programs that provide services directly to fathers. And if there is a way that you could, support, support those programs, right? Because they serve as an alternative to fathers being incarcerated. They serve as an alternative. They serve as a opportunity for fathers to put themselves in position to be better fathers, to be actively engaged in the lives of their children. So again, like I said, the system is the system, the courts are the courts. I really can't even imagine how to start engaging them about that. But what I do know is fathers still need support. They still need support. They still need to be guided when they are impacted by the system. They still need to be guided because that can be a maze all by itself. But yeah, programs like the Center for Urban Families that provide services directly to fathers, helping them to be more actively and positively involved in the lives of their children. We could make sure that we are supporting programs like that. Yeah.
Thank you. And since you raised that point, obviously the Center for Urban Families does great work around this issue. Are there other resources for people in Baltimore City, maybe if there's a father watching, that they can turn to for support?
As I stated, I know if you have a child support case, and you have an issue with non-compliant, child support has several different initiatives. It's in Baltimore City, has several different initiatives to help you get on the right track and begin to manage your child support situation. They have several different initiatives that will be of support. Child support in Baltimore City is trying to steer away from that dark cloud of punitive. They're just trying to steer away from that and to be more of a supportive agency. It's still a struggle. It's still a struggle, but they are trying to be more of a supportive agency.
Awesome, thanks for sharing. So I think, we can start to wind down. I think we've had a lot of great conversation today, both about what individuals can do who are participating or engaging with the system, and also some of the ways the system can be improved. I do want to shout out for Justice and their awesome advocacy work. They do a lot of the listening when it comes to fathers and what they're experiencing, and taking that feedback, engaging with legislators in Annapolis and in Baltimore City around how legislation can be improved, based on these kinds of issues. And so they do have monthly advocacy committee meetings, I believe on third Wednesdays. You can go to outforjustice.org to find out more on how to get involved if you're watching. And maybe it would be nice to end with something a little more lighthearted. Father's Day is coming up. And so for all of the panelists, whether you are a father yourself or you have a father in your life, what is one way that you're planning to celebrate Father's Day this year?
So I'm gonna jump right in real quick. It almost slipped my mind. I would be remiss if I didn't make everybody aware of this major event that we're going to be having in Carroll Park on June the 17th. Starts at 5 p.m. It's a fatherhood pledge outing. We're trying to get 1,000 dads to come with their children. And it's going to be real festive. It's going to be real celebratory. And just want to hope that everybody can take advantage of coming out and celebrating fatherhood with us on June the 17th, 5 p.m. at Carroll Park. It's located in the corner of, it's located on Monroe and Washington Boulevard. If anybody knows where Carroll Park is. But it's going to be real festive. It's going to be real open to fathers coming to celebrate Father's Day. June the 17th, which is next Friday, starting at 5 p.m. Don't forget, tell everybody, bring your kids, bring the family, and let's support our dads on June the 17th.
Yeah, thanks for the shout out. And can I ask, how can people find out more information about Center for Urban Families, since you put that out there?
We're on the website, cfuf.org. If you look it up on the website, CFUF, C as in cat, F as in Frank, U as in umbrella, F as in Frank, CFUF.org. And you'll see a lot about our organization. We've been in existence for a long time.
Darrius, how do you plan on celebrating?
I may not get to see him, but if I don't get to see my dad because of the system and the way that mothers are, I didn't get to meet my dad till I was about 25 years old. And then for the next 15 years, I kind of looked at him through the prism of how my mother presented him. And so I just recently have just kind of connected him in a way, honestly, just about 6 weeks ago. I just went down and saw him, and it was interesting because my mother tried to give me some flack, and I had to just put my foot down and say, look, I'm going to see Dad. That's just the end of it. And we got to spend some time together, me, him, and my brother. And honestly, I'm like, this is the way it should have been from the start. So he lives in Ohio, so I don't know if we are going to be able to get down there this year for exactly on Father's Day, but at the family reunion, me and my brother plan to really spend some time with him and love up on him because, you know, I will say this for fathers, and this what made me kind of like, we just had this bonding moment that, you know, because he's getting older, and every father at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, I don't care what the relationship is like, every father wants to know that his kids are okay. So that's what we're gonna do.
Ashe, my brother. Ashe.
Ashe.
Yeah, enjoy. That sounds amazing. I'm glad you got to connect. Jonathan, any way you plan to celebrate Father's Day?
I'm going down to Augusta. My son is down there. My father is deceased. He died in 2015. But we'll be in Augusta at the time. Me and my son are going to get together. We'll go out to the lake and fish together, and then we'll come back and skin up the fish and fry them together. He's 23 years old now, so every moment that I get to spend with him is like I feel like I'm seeing a celebrity, you know. So we'll get to spend some time together. Father's Day for me is when I go home to Augusta. My mom is still alive, so I see pictures of my father at the house. And I have literally become my father, even though my father was, you know, he was a jailhouse lawyer, and I became an actual courthouse lawyer. So I'm been amazed to have his DNA in me. And it is just as Mr. Humphrey said, every father just desires to make sure that his kid is okay. And with my little 23-year-old, I still call him my little guy, you know. I just want to make sure that he's okay. He just started driving down there because we really couldn't show him how to drive up here. It was kind of too crazy to learn, but he's been driving. And I'm like, I want to make sure that he's okay. I want to drive with him for the first time and let him drive, because I didn't trust him to drive when he was up here too much. I didn't trust me to drive too much when I was up here. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that and spending some time with him.
Yeah, have fun with your son and your family. Loving all these great plans. You know, it's a good way to celebrate, especially, you know, over the pandemic. You know, not everyone has gotten to see each other in such long times. Charlene, did you want to share your plans for Father's Day?
I will just say that my father is also deceased, but I always give him a shout out because I was not a fatherless daughter like so many. And so on that day, we usually honor and appreciate him, although he's been deceased for almost 15 years now. So I do want to still shout out my dad because I was, unlike many, I was fortunate enough to have a great dad and have him in my life.
Yeah, beautifully put. Yeah, thanks everyone for sharing, for speaking about this issue of parenthood and fatherhood in the court system. Also showing up, you know, as your whole persons, you know, on a Wednesday evening. I know it's hard, you know, showing up 7 p.m. after work, but, you know, I really do think we had a great conversation, and I'm glad people got to see it, you know, everything you had to share. So I'm going to end here, but again, we'll be uploading this to YouTube if you want to share it with us, with anybody. And I hope everyone has a good night.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.